first ever book awards. Yay! Yay! There's no one here except for our prestigious panel of judges who will introduce here in just a second. But I am going to announce the book that we are looking at today, scrutinizing, seeing it good, it's bad, it's ugly. And that is Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. I gave this book 4.5 out of 5 stars. Well, that's, you'll know rating right now. I'll tell you what I feel just a little bit later. We have a whole list of awards to be giving out tonight to characters, to scenes, to settings, to literally anything and everything that has to do with this book. And I'm going to be doing a fan cast for, well, it's going to be supernatural actors. Because that's kind of all I know right now. So we're just using only supernatural actors who I think would best play each of the some of the characters in this book. Those people I will be adding are Jared Padalecki, Jensen Ackles, Misha Collins, Mark Shepard, Mark Pellegrino, Richard Speight Jr., Rob Benedict, Ruth, what is her last name? Ruth. I can't think of her last name. Love her to death. She plays Rowena. Felicia Day, Jody, Kim Rhodes, Brianna Buckmaster, Rachel Miner, and Ozark Chow. Those are the people I'm going to be putting, who I think best would fit each cast. I know there's a TV show. I haven't seen all of it. So, if I have seen the TV or movie, that will also be discussed, and that will be discussed by one of our prestigious judges that we have today here. They are prestigious readers. They have read since they were about 5 years old. All 3 of them. Crazy, I know. And each of them have their own, each of them have their own special topics to talk about that they're the most knowledgeable about. So, without further ado, here's our 3 prestigious judges. Alright. Our first prestigious judge is Kate Foster. This Kate Foster comes from Kansas, Lebanon, Kansas to be exact. She is a hunter and she hunts all things supernatural. And she's also a hunter of good literature. She is a good person. She trusts her instincts a lot. She's a good judge of character. So she will be coming with us to talk about character. Also, she is a good researcher because when you do hunting, you have to research quite a bit. So Kate Foster, our number 1 Kate Foster, is here to talk about characters and the background of the book and a background of characters and how well they set up. Supernatural is also known for its scenes, its heartbreaking scenes, its big battle scenes. So, Supernatural, Kate Foster will also be bringing us her takes on some of the best and worst scenes. I don't know. Or how about that? I like that. Okay. I like this. Our second Kate is Kate Foster. She is a time traveler, so you will be seeing her in a wide variety of clothing throughout these awards. Kate Foster travels with a mysterious man in a blue box. She doesn't tell us much, but she says that he is a doctor, so I guess we can trust him. Kate is a good surveyor of landscapes, so she can she is good about scenes as well, but talking about the setting and how everything's set up, she's the best one to talk about. That includes time period, what the author does with the time period, the setting, how the world is set up. That Kate is your girl to talk about. Kate, also being a woman of time travel, is also good with references. So if this is anything like something else, she's good at bringing that to us as well. So Kate will be covering a few awards as well. Our third and final Kate is Kate Foster, number 3, and this is our fangirl. She will be talking anything and everything she wants to talk about. We can't really rein her in. She likes to talk about ships. She likes to talk about what the fandom's talking about, and she will be bringing to us every time, a question that will be brought up. And thankfully, there's actually discussion questions at the end of this book that we can talk about. So Kate will be discussing some things that Leanne points out in here, and look at what Leanne has to say, and things that are problematic in the book. Our second Kate will also be talking about that as well. So, without further ado, let's get on to our awards. Awards tonight will be this little we only have one to show off. We'll give the rest theirs when they come out. This is just, props. So it's a Polar Express lantern thing. Yeah, it's a snow globe. This is set in a warm setting, so we will be giving it just a little bit of snow. Okay, so our first award tonight is for favorite character. We have our nominations. Our nominations are Madeline, Ed, or Jane. So we will flip to our first Kate to talk about each of the characters now. So, favorite characters. One of my favorite characters is Madeline. Madeline steals the show. Quite literally steals the show. She is a powerhouse in character, and I think she goes through a lot, and I think she just absolutely powers through it and goes through a lot of crap in her life, but she is strong and she is great. She was a single mom at one point, and all single parents out there, props to them. They are some of the strongest people ever. Just gonna say that. Especially single moms. Single dads too, but single moms because of gender inequality and all of that. So, anyways, I'm just gonna fix my hair real quick. Anyways, so Madeline, she has a wonderful husband in Ed, and I just think she has some good character development. Now, my second favorite character, one of my favorite characters is Ed, because Ed is just a gem, and we all love Ed. Ed is amazing. Ed goes through all of this with Madeline, and he's a great support for Madeline, and I don't think Madeline would have been able to go through a lot of what she was going through so well if it wasn't for Ed, and I think Ed's just this great character. And then there's Celeste, who is amazing. Like, she's a badass. And she just goes through so much, and I'm so proud of her. And I think she's just a great character all around, because she goes through a lot of character development, and we're all proud of her. There you go. Okay, and our third nominee was Jane, who is the main character of the story, so obviously she needs to be on this list. She's a likable character. I think she's just a little bit bland. Plain Jane, if you will. She gets overshadowed by Madeline a lot, and Celeste too. She's a good character, and she has good character development throughout the story, I think, as well. Being a single mother, she is very, very strong. I just think, and it's just a lot of her past, and I can empathize with her past. Not so much being pregnant and all of that and being a single mother, but just men being awful because of how a woman looks. So I think Jane is a very strong woman to go through what she went through with mental illness and being a single mother. So yes, Jane is nominated for this award. And we're back. Okay. So, thank you, Kate, for that wonderful discussion of all three characters. But the judges have spoken to each other before this award show, came together. And our first award for favorite character goes to Madeline. Woo! I'm just going to do like a... Yeah! So, Madeline is a hilarious character. When you watch the TV show, Reese Witherspoon just absolutely steals the show. She's great. Madeline is the most likable character. She's the funniest. She has the most growth in the book, I think. And I think she says she doesn't handle things very well. I think she handles things great. So, my award for favorite character goes to Madeline. Now, for the award of worst character, we have our nominations. This is also known as the Umbridge Award. So, for worst character, we have Perry, or Saxon Banks, however you want to call him, because he's both characters. We have Renata. She was a witch with a B at the beginning, but she did turn herself around, I believe. And then we have Harper, who is the most annoying character in all of this book. And good night, I wish she would have died. Honestly. So, for our Umbridge Award, we go back to Kate, and she will talk about each of the characters more in depth. So our first nominee is Perry, who is the absolute worst person because he's an abuser, he's a cheater, and not just the domestic abuser of his wife, but he also abused Jane, as we find out later on. So there will be spoilers, because this will be talking a lot about spoilers. Perry is the absolute worst person. And yes, he does die in the end, which made me very happy. He is abuser. He is cheater. He cheats on his wife with Jane, and he now has another son that he had no idea about. He impersonated his cousin, so he's ruining his own cousin's name by Jane using Jane's thinking that her son's father's name is Saxon, so he's ruining the name of his cousin, who, as we see is or know about him, is a perfectly fine man who loves his wife, but he's just an awful person, and he kind of deserved to die. So, just gonna state that. Next is Renata. Renata is an unlikable person because we see the perspectives of this story are coming from Jane, Madeline, and Celeste, who aren't the biggest fans of Renata. So she's not painted in a great light, but in the end she does make up for the things that she did in the beginning and throughout the story. And the third nominee is Harper because she's the most annoying character of them all. She, starts a petition to suspend a 5-year-old. Anyways, that there was really no evidence for this abuse against him other than the incident at the orientation, and there's a whole nother story. And she's just really annoying. She's stuck up. She's a wannabe mean girl, popular girl. So she's following Renata around. She wants to be Renata, but she's never going to be Renata. She's just a terrible person for being terrible person purposes. Nothing else. She's just a terrible person. Yeah, the petition, going to other moms, dragging other people into the freaking drama, like, that is so petty and so wrong when it's such a one-sided argument right now. And she takes everything too far. She blows up things that are just, doesn't need that much attention as she does it. She is a coward, and she can take things, but she can't, she can give things, but she can't take it. She is just terrible. Anyways, that's our nominees. Alright, and welcome back. This is our winner for the worst character, and the Umbridge Award goes to Perry! Perry is the villain of this story, and he's just awful, and yes, Harper is extremely annoying. She doesn't do anything illegal. So, the worst character goes to Perry. Congratulations. Perry's couldn't be here either tonight. So, we will just move along. Our next award is for Best Scene. We are not doing Worst Scene because there wasn't anything just justifying to be the worst scene. But we will be going for the Best Scene in the book. And that is an award that goes to the best written, the best setup scene in the entire book. We have our nominations. Our first nomination is the very beginning where Jane and Madeline meet for the first time, and Jane saves Madeline from a twisted ankle. So, our second nomination goes to when Jane confronts Harper in the sandbox. And our third and final scene that is nominated for Best Scene is the very last scene where I won't say anything because spoilers. If we do go into spoilers, there will be a line of text above the head of whoever's talking And in this case, it is going to be Kate, Supernatural Kate again. Supernatural Kate has quite a bit. So let's get to Supernatural Kate and talk about best scenes. Of good scenes in this book. It was hard to narrow it down to just 3. So we'll start from when they show up in the story. And the first one is the first scene where Jane meets Madeline. And in this point, Jane and Madeline have no idea who they are. And Jane decides to help out Madeline. And I think this is an important point in the book because of this begins their friendship for one thing. And this is what really gets Madeline on Jane's side. And I think this is where how it would have had if this would not have happened, the split between Renata and Madeline would have never happened. And there's just so much going on. It's such a simple thing of helping someone, but in the end, they could possibly, just like Madeline, end up being your greatest friend and ally in hard times. Madeline was always there for Jane when Jane needed her, so always great. The next scene is the scene where with the beginning, also in the beginning, where Renata and Jane come to a head at the very first time. And that is so important because it sets off everything. And this is why you seem like you can't trust a child to not have abused his friend and hurt his friend, or just a girl that he just met. And you're sitting there and you're wondering and you want to believe him, but also at the same time, like, there's evidence that this girl was hurt. And despite what the reading vlogs said, yes, she was very much hurt. It's just who hurt her and was she lying throughout the book of who is hurting her. And then you have these moments of just questioning whether or not Ziggy is actually telling the truth and he's not a secret psychopath, because of learning about his father and what his father did to Jane. And you're wondering if nature versus nurture is really a thing. And then another kind of fun scene that happened, since we really don't like Harper. Harper's the absolute worst character in this book. She's annoying, and if she was not in this book, she has this one key point to her, and she is the one who started the petition to suspend Ziggy. And she didn't even just do it to kindergarten people. I'm going into Harper, but she got other parents and just telling one-sided story. It's so dumb. Anyways, this comes to a head when Jane and Harper are in the sandbox and they like have this argument, and then Harper is like, she assaulted me. Oh my gosh, it's dumb. It's kind of a fun scene, just because Jane finally stands up for herself. Now the last scene that is very important and I think is a great scene all around is the very last scene where you finally find out who was murdered and who murdered this person. Everything was building up and you've had all of these revelations drop. You find out a lot of things in this one scene, and all of these characters come together against this one other character. who ends up being the person who is murdered in the book. I think that the build-up was great, and leaving some people out of the interviews was such a good idea that when you finally got to the end, you are sitting there questioning whether or not who you thought was murdered was actually murdered. And I think who murdered this person also made sense in the end. It was a good final scene, good conclusion to the entire book. We're back. Thank you, Kate, for that wonderful insight on the best scenes in the entire book. So, the award for best scene goes to the finale. The finale was a good way to end it, and I enjoyed it very, very much. So, good job to the final scene. We don't really have anybody that could actually come and accept this award. So, we're just going to move on. Okay? Okay. All right. So, the next one is favorite trope. So, this book here, right here, is very tropey. And we would like to give out an award to Leanne for the best trope that we could possibly come up with. So, the tropes are not revealing who the murderer is until the very end and having the murder take place in the very beginning and working our way up to the murder. The second trope that is up for nomination is the trope of the step-parents being the absolute worst. And our third and final trope is the trope of the villain not actually being as bad as they seem. We will be going to our time travel Caitlin to see what her thoughts are on this. Okay, so our first trope is the trope where the murder takes place in the beginning, but you don't know who it is until the very end and who is the murderer. Now, most books will tell you who is murdered when the murder happens. Not this book. This book takes the less common trope I've seen, where it shows the murder, the aftermaths of the murder, and works all the way through, and the murder is what is the climax of this story. Now, I think it worked out well because there was interviews going through this whole story, and the interviews kind of mention things, and then we see the things actually happen within the story. And there's people left out, like Jane, Perry, and you know these people are left out. And so you're like, well, these people are left out, and you're just like, okay, well, now we're going down a list of who is not talking in these interviews to know who was murdered at the very end. I will say I was wrong. I thought I knew who got murdered at the very beginning, and I was wrong. I kind of figured it out once we saw a lot more of the story, but my initial thought on who was murdered was very wrong. So the next trope is a very common trope, and I think it was done well just because it felt a lot more realistic than some other stories show it, and it's the step-parents being the absolute worst. There is Madeline and Ed, Now, Ed is an absolute dream, and we love Ed. Ed is great. So, there's Ed, who's the step-parent, and then there's Bonnie, who's also a step-parent to Abigail. And now there's this custody battle between the two, Madeline and Nathan, who is going to take care of Abigail. And Abigail, one contention in the book is that she goes to live with Nathan and Bonnie, and Madeline is clearly upset about this. And I think the step-parent thing is very realistic, and I think both sets of parents really want what's best for Abigail in this story, and they're not actually the worst. It's just the perspective we're seeing. We're seeing Madeline's eyes looking at Nathan and Bonnie, and that's all we're seeing. And we're also seeing how Ed treats Abigail through the eyes of Madeline, who is in love with Ed. I mean, we're all in love with Ed, so I mean, same. But Nathan and Bonnie are really not the absolute worst, as we come to find out. And there's a lot to both of them, and I wish we got a little bit more of Nathan and why he was just awful when Abigail was younger, but we didn't, because Madeline never really tells us, or Madeline doesn't actually find out this much information. Now, Bonnie is not a terrible person. She's just unobservant and not really knowledgeable of what's happening, and I think she wants to help the world, and Abigail obviously wants to as well, but Abigail takes it way too far, and I think it's just this contention of Bonnie's putting this in Abigail's mind that Madeline is not liking all that much. Now, Ed is a great father. I think he definitely probably favors his own children, but as we see, he's a good father to Abigail, so it's not such a terrible situation for Abigail. Both sets of parents really seem to love her, and that includes the step-parents, even though there is now children on both sides of the pairs now that she now has half siblings from both her mom and her dad. So that's that. And then the next one is the villain not actually being the villain, or not being as terrible as we thought. Renata, by the end of the story, apologizes for being wrong. She sees when she's wrong, and she apologizes for it. I was so mad at Renata when I first started reading this book, but Renata is fully justified for what happens, and really she doesn't deserve what happens to her by the end of the book. It's just her husband is an awful person. One is you can't fully trust things. If you have to trust your instincts for a lot of for most things, okay? And I think she saw it coming, but I think she did not deserve it. Now, Harper ends up finding out that her husband is also cheating on her with the nanny. The nanny is, okay, I should have put the nanny on there too, but we don't see the nanny a whole lot, or she's not mentioned a whole lot. She's the absolute worst too, because she's like sleeping with all these men, all these dads. If it was the fact that she was sleeping with guys that were single, you know, that's another story. But she's sleeping with all these dads, and that is terrible. She's a homewrecker. Those are terrible people. The husbands are also very, very terrible people for sleeping with other people. That is not their wives, but that's another story. The absolute worst person in this story was Saxon. You already saw that. Saxon is a terrible person because he's abusive and a cheater. He's the worst character of them all because he has so many offenses against him. Yeah, we're not talking about the worst character though. So Renata, in the end, was there when the murder happens. This is not slight spoiler, not really. She was there. And in the end, she comes together with all these people, and that's that. She's really not a terrible person, and her reasonings are valid because it's her daughter getting hurt. She is very valid in her reasoning. Harper, on the other hand, is not. But Renata is. And I appreciate that Renata does apologize and does own up to her mistakes in the end and looks to hopefully fix what had happened to. And thank you, Kate, for that insight on the tropes. Our judges have spoken and have decided, and the best trope is the best trope is working. It's the murder happening in the beginning and working up to the murder and finding out who was murdered and who was the murderer. I think it was a good switcheroo. I thought I knew who was murdered in the beginning. I was wrong. And I I didn't expect the murderer to be who it was. I think they had a justified they were justified in why they murdered who they did. And I think it was a good way to wrap everything up, and the story came to a nice conclusion. Alright, our next award is the I Date You in a Heartbeat award. This is also known as the Sam Winchester Award. And this goes to characters, the character who I would like to most date in this book. I will state I am straight, so it's highly, highly, highly unlikely that a female would end up on this list. But if a female did end up on this list, you know it'd be good. So, the nominees for the I Date You in a Heartbeat award are Ed, Tom, and Nathan. So we're going to go to our third final Kate, fangirl Kate, to fangirl over each of these guys. There is not a lot of good guys in this book, but the good guys we do have are amazing. Okay, so let's start with Ed. Ed is like the greatest dad in the story, hands down. He's so attentive, and he's the voice of reason and everything, and he helps Madeline along this way, and he's like, the guy that plays him, I think his name is Andrew Scott, is so freaking adorable. Also, when I first saw he was cast as Ed, I was just like, yes, that is my Ed. He's so adorable, and I love Ed so much. I think just like his marriage with Madeline is so adorable. And I love that. I love Ed. Ed is so great. And then we go on to Tom, and Tom is just, I think he's adorable. And he helps Jane, and he's just like this hipster guy that I want to be friends with, but like, I would also date him at the same time, because he's really, really, just like, seems really, really cute, and just like, he's so cute. Guys, he's so cute. Also, we had to throw in Nathan, because Nathan is the only other decent male in the story. So, I mean, Nathan, yeah, he's taking care of kids. He's fine. He's decent. But, like, he was terrible earlier on, so I wouldn't want to date early Nathan. I'd rather date like the Nathan that's in this story, much older, much wiser. I think having this kind of relationship would be great, but at the same time, he's up against like Tom and Ed. Like, he's against two top contenders. There's no way of him winning when he's up against Ed and Tom. So, that's my thoughts. Ah! They're so cute. And thank you, Fangirl Kate. We had to cut you off eventually because, my goodness, girl. If we didn't, you would just talk forever. Okay. So, the winner for the Sam Winchester I Date You in a Heartbeat award, and that goes to Ed. Ed is adorable. Ed is just, I don't know. He's a good dad. And also, the guy who plays him in the TV show, really, really good choice there. Like, he's really good. I really enjoy him. And I'm happy to announce that he is the I Date You in a Heartbeat award winner. Our next award is for Best Side Character. This is also known as the Gabriel Award. This goes to a side character who shone above the rest. And our nominees for Best Side Character are Bonnie, Abigail, and I have to sneeze. Oh my gosh. And also I can't think of Bonnie, Abigail. Who else do we want to okay. And Ed. Ed's going to be nominated for 2 awards tonight. And we will be going back to number 2, our time-traveling Kate, to talk about the best side characters. So we all know Doctor Who has the best side characters. So take it away, Kate. So our nominees for best side character were Bonnie, Abigail, and Ed. So, as we heard earlier, Ed is just an amazing person. He helps a lot, and in the end, he does the right thing, even though we kind of want to protect Bonnie. But Ed is like, no, I don't want all of this to, like, come back and hurt us, even though Perry was an awful person, you know? And I think Ed is the reasoning behind a lot of things, and he's the voice of reason for a lot of things, and I just think he's a good person. He because that he's won my heart over. So the next character is Bonnie. Bonnie is an absolute badass. She's fought through a lot of things. We see that at the very end. I kind of wish we had heard more about that a little bit sooner, that I just think she's a terrible parent to Abigail. But other than that, she's a pretty badass character. I mean, she's the one that, spoilers, kills Perry in the end. And I think her reasoning was justified. I just wish that we saw a lot more of it. But she's not a main character, therefore it's okay, I guess. And yeah. Next is Abigail. Abigail, I was frustrated by Abigail a lot. I understand why she might feel unwanted at one place and wanting to go another, because it's the cool place, but then she realizes living there, it becomes the uncool place and not fun, and she misses her real home with her mother. And I love Catherine, who plays Abigail on the TV show. I love her on Supernatural. I think she's just a wonderful actress altogether. And I just want to see more of her. And I didn't realize she was playing Abigail in the show. And it just makes me love the character a little bit more. I think she's a bit more likable on the TV show than in the book. She's just very frustrating. And I understand why she wants to do a lot of things. But she's got to understand her limitations. And that's why I think for that is why it's good that she has 4 parents to kind of just hone in and stop her from doing the stuff she really wants to. Bonnie should not have shown her a lot of this stuff, but you can't protect them forever. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. The next award is the Jack Award, and this goes to the person I want to hug you and wrap you in a blanket. So our nominees for the Jack Award are Jane, Ziggy, and Amma Bella. We will be going to Kate number 3 to find out who she wants to hug and why, and wrap them in a blanket. So take it away. All right, and we're back for the best side character, and the winner of the best side character goes to Abigail. Abigail is no, we're taking that back. Okay, so is Ed. Ed gets 2 awards tonight. Ed has some good character development, and I enjoyed him the entire time. He seems to be more realistic, and he does his best where Madeline fails. So I think he's just the best side character. And what I mean by best side character, you can argue a lot of things, but the book is split up into 3 perspectives, and those are 3 main characters. So it couldn't have been Madeline, Celeste, or Jane. Okay. There are so many characters that I would want to give this award to, because there's a lot of characters I want to just be there and like hug them and be like, it's gonna be okay. But I had to narrow it down to 3. So my 3 had to have been Jane, Ziggy, and Amabella, because Jane, for one reason, she is alone with parenting, and she doesn't have a lot of backup. She just moved in, so she doesn't have a whole lot of friends. And luckily she has Madeline, who is a powerhouse, and Celeste, who's also a great backup for them. But Jane has to go through all of this trouble with her kid being accused of doing something that he didn't do, and all, like, the parents turning on her and her child, and her child is going through this mess because he's being accused of something he's not doing. And Jane is so strong through all of this, and I just want to give her a hug and just be like, we're going to get through this, okay? You're going to get through this. It's going to be fine. Ziggy's going to be fine. Speaking of Ziggy, like, he's doing this to protect his friend, like, and she doesn't want people to know, and he's just like, it's okay. He's a good friend, and he's going through all of this, and like, he's being turned down for birthday parties. His friend, like, people are allowed to play with him. He's going through all this pain, and it's just because of a terrible freaking child who's a sociopath, psychopath, whatever he is. He's a psycho kid. And he's just, I want to wrap him in a blanket. And Amabella, she's going through so much. She's getting abused by this boy, and she's also trying to protect her family, and she's also trying to protect herself by not saying who's actually doing it. And I can see that she sees all the pain that Ziggy's going through, and she wants to help in a way, and she knows Ziggy isn't doing anything wrong, and I don't think she realizes the consequences of her actions as much as like the parents are fighting over this. And I don't think she realizes how big of a problem she has now created by lying about who hurt her in the beginning and who continues to hurt her. And I want to wrap her in a blanket too, because she gets so much flack as well. And like, there's this turn against her as well, that like some of the kids don't go to her birthday party, they go to Disney on Ice instead. And it's all because the mom is, you know, like really, really reacted. Normally, in hindsight, it's a normal reaction for a parent to react like that. It's just, you know, it's a lie about who is hurting her. And I want to wrap her in a blanket because it's affecting her as well. So, yeah, that's how I'd wrap it in a blanket. They're so adorable. And we're back. Thank you, Fangirl Kate. Thank you for that insight on each of these characters and why they are adorable. So, the winner of the Jack Awards is Ziggy. We're going to give it to Ziggy. Ziggy had to go through a lot in this book, and it wasn't because of his fault. And he was doing a lot of it because he wanted to be a good friend. So, poor Ziggy. Ziggy's going to win the Jack Award for this time. It's the Dean Winchester Award for the character who was an absolute badass. So, our nominees for absolute badass are Madeline, Bonnie, and Jane. We will be going back to our hunter friend, Kate, who will be discussing who is the most badass in this book. I was aware that we changed Madeline to Celeste, so I'll be talking about Celeste, Jane, and Bonnie. So Celeste is amazing because she goes through so much trauma and she holds it in, and she's able to contain her anger, and she's so strong in just the fact that she realizes there is a problem and she's taking steps to do that. It takes her a little bit, but anybody that goes through something like that deserves just all the praises for like being strong and, you know, getting through it. So Celeste is just an amazing person, and I think in the end she's super strong and tries to do what's best for her children and her own life, and she wants to protect herself. So the next person is Bonnie. Spoilers. So Bonnie is the one that ends up killing Perry in the end. That puts her on this list for being an ultimate badass. She just, in the end, you find out she was also abused as a child. And again, going through a lot of abuse, it makes you stronger. It makes you a stronger person if you survive. Like, there's no reason for abuse to be in this world. And people who go through that are amazing people, and they're so strong. And I personally think they're the strongest people on this planet for going through such terrible things. Male or female, anyone can be abused. And Bonnie, in the end, is the one that kills Perry, and it's like nobody cares because Perry's a terrible person. Anyways, so the last nominee is Jane, because she's also a single mother, and she battles her own mental illness, and she becomes stronger because of it. And she's a great mother to Ziggy, despite what a lot of people say. And I think that she, going through all of this, she's very strong in not losing her cool and standing her ground and believing Ziggy and trying to get to the bottom of what's actually happening in this story. And I'm so happy that she actually does, and things turn out good. And she finds closure with the father of her child. And I think she's just an ultimate badass as well. All three women are awesome. We're back. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Kate. And we will be going with, there has been a change, apparently. We will be changing that from Madeline to Celeste. Celeste is a new nomination. But I think our answer is still correct in who we originally thought was the badass for this book. And the badass for this book goes to Celeste. Celeste earns this. We didn't consider her at first, but I think we think that after some rethinking, that Celeste is a better fighter, or she went through a lot in this book, emotionally, physically, and we think because of her turmoil that Celeste deserves the Badass Dean Winchester Award. Our next award goes to the best line in the entire book. We have 3 nominations. This is also called the Castiel Award. This line goes to what we think is the best way to describe the book as a whole. So, we have 3 lines. The first line comes to us from Bonnie at the beginning of the first chapter, actually the end of the first chapter. And she says, all conflict can be traced back to someone's feelings getting hurt, don't you think? Divorce, world wars, legal action. Well, maybe not every legal action. So, I think this best describes this book because obviously a lot of this comes down to people's feelings getting hurt and not actually a whole lot else. Our next quote comes from chapter 22, and this comes from Jane. She says, Jane had been horrified. Great. Now Renata would have even more reason to dislike her. Jane would have an enemy. The last time she had anything close to enemy, she was in primary school herself. It had never crossed her mind that sending your child to school would be like going to school to yourself. This is all about the parents. This isn't about the children. So that's why that is a good quote for this book. And the last one goes to chapter 34. And this one hit a chord with me. This one says, it's because an woman's entire self-worth rests on her looks, said Jane. That's why. It's because we live in a beauty-obsessed society where the most important thing a woman can do is make herself attractive to men. And I think this is a good one because part of the conflict in this book also comes down to working moms versus stay-at-home moms. So, I think this hits the nail on the head about women in general. And this is a book of kind of exploring that as well. So, we will be going to number 2, Kate, our time traveling Kate, and she will be discussing each of these lines. Want to angle it, not so much that. Okay, that's a lot better. So there is a multitude of great quotes in this book, but we had to narrow it down to 3 for the nominations. The first quote, talking about how everything can be traced back to hurting someone's feelings, really fits the story because of who got murdered, why they got murdered, all goes back to somebody's feelings getting hurt and going back to these harbored feelings of just pain, and not necessarily what the person did to the person who murdered them, but there's all these feelings, and somebody's feelings got hurt. Someone's got pushed over the edge and murdered someone. And also with the fact that the whole shebang of like everyone blowing all the drama in this story is because of Amabella getting hurt. But she did actually get physically hurt. And a lot of it was because of a simple lie that really messed with everything in the whole story. And it's all based off of a lie. And lies hurt people, tend to hurt people. So, that's a good quote. The other one is, I didn't know going back to having a kid going to school is going to be like going back to primary school myself. Yeah, that's the whole thing. There's so much drama, and that reminds me so much of high school and middle school, and you get put in so much drama when you have a kid, and especially as that kid becomes popular, there's so much drama, and there's so much that you go against parents sometimes, and there's these cliques, and there's sides and everything of the drama, and that fits everything that happens in this book. The last one is talking about beauty-obsessed society and what the expectations for women are. There is a conflict between the working women and the stay-at-home moms, and who's better at raising kids, the stay-at-home moms or the working moms, and can you have a career and be a mother at the same time? That is a big thing that plays in this book, not as much as the lies and the feelings, but it still plays a large role, and also beauty and the standards and just this feeling of not being enough and doing and what the expectations for a woman are, and that has to do a lot with this book. Thank you for that insight, number 2, Kate. All right, our winner for the Castiel Award goes to the line about going back to primary school as an adult. That line describes this book to the T. So, congratulations, Jane. You actually won an award. You get the award for having the best line, and I think Jane also has some of the best insights as a young woman. The award is the Bobby Award. This award goes to the best parents in the book. And the best parents, our nominees are Jane, Madeline, and Ed. So, we will be going to our fangirl Kate to discuss why each of these deserve to win the Bobby Award. So, the nominees for the Bobby Award are Madeline, Ed, and Jane. Now, Madeline, I think she does very well as a parent because of how she took care of Abigail for the longest time, and then she's still doing what's good for her, even though now she has 2 more children. And she really fights for Abigail, and I think she knows what's best for Abigail, even though Abigail doesn't agree with it. But I think she knows what's best. And I can feel for her, being like, her child who she raised, spent so much money, so much time on, like, just wants to go live with her dad, who didn't give a crap about her until she didn't need him. So, anyway, she handled it very well, and she let Abigail make her own decisions. But obviously, when she just wasn't thinking straight and was messing with the wrong crowd, she finally stepped in and was like, no, this is not happening. We're shutting this down. 1, it's illegal. 2, it's never going to happen. And Celeste ends up, spoilers, helping it out in the end, to make Abigail not go through with what she was going to do. So I think Nathan and Bonnie didn't help one bit. Ed, on the other hand, is a good parent because he is very attentive and he's the voice of reason in all of this. He takes care of Abigail like his own, and he treats his own children very well. And I think the whole situation with Madeline and Ed and the whole family there is normal. It feels normal. But, like, there's a lot of fighting, but there's still some stability in the house. Now, Jane's house is also kind of unstable, but she is trying to make as much stability as she possibly can for Ziggy, and she should be commended for it, and she's such a strong person, and I keep repeating myself because she is, and she does everything for Ziggy. She stands by him. She doesn't just believe these accusations. She stands by her child when nobody else does. And sometimes for a child, that's all their child needs, is someone to back them up. And I think Jane is just so wonderful for thinking that that could not have been her child that did it. And she went through so much because of Ziggy, or these accusations on Ziggy. Not necessarily Ziggy himself, just these accusations on Ziggy. But she doesn't let anybody tell her what to do, and she fights. She just tries to make a stable home life for him, and tries and gives him everything he needs. And honestly, that's literally it. She's just great mom. And Ziggy loves her. So, yeah. That's my thoughts on the debate for that insight on who should win the Bobby Award. This doesn't necessarily mean someone has to die, Kate. Thank you very much. So, the winner of the Bobby Award goes to Jane, because I think Jane keeps her cool throughout this entire book. All this stuff gets thrown at her, and she doesn't stand down. She stands by her kid. She believes her kid, and she finally figures out what happened in the end. And I think that Jane deserves the award for the Bobby Award for Best Parents. Good job, Jane. A fan cast. Who I would cast in each these people as in these roles. So we are starting with Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles. I'll just roll them together. I think that Jared Padalecki and Jensen Ackles would play Ed and Nathan. I think Jared would play... I think Jared would play Nathan, and I think Jensen would play Ed in this little put together. Then we're going to move on to Misha. Misha, I would have play... This is a really, really difficult decision because Misha... There's not a whole lot of men characters in this story, so we are going to put Misha off for now. Then I forgot to mention Alex Calvert. Alex, we are going to have play... Ooh. I don't know. I really don't know because Alex... We'll put off Alex. Not all of these actors are going to have positions. So, I think that Mark Pellegrino is going to play Perry just because he plays Lucifer. And then we're going to have put Mark Shepard as Renata's husband in this. So then we're moving on to our females. I would have Samantha Smith. We're going to start with Samantha. Samantha's going to play Celeste. I think that Felicia Day would play Jane. And I think that Kim Rhodes or Brianna would fit good for Madeline. I think they both would be very good. I think that Ruthie would play Renata. And I'm not putting anyone as Harper because I don't want to put that on anybody. So that is my fan cast for... Oh, Bonnie. Bonnie, I think... Actually, Kim. Kim can play Bonnie, and Brianna can play Madeline. I think they both would be good for those roles. And I think that is all the major characters because that's all I'm going to do because it's so much harder. And Catherine Newton, who is also in Supernatural, can just play Abigail because that's who she plays on the show. We come full circle, everyone. Alright, that has been our awards for Big Little Lies by Liane Moriarty. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff because there is more of these coming. Yeah, our next book that we will be doing is Thank You, Kate. And you won't know which Kate it was. Haha. Is Nightwing Volume 1 by Tim Steele, Javier Fernandez, and Chris Sotomayor. So, thank you guys for enjoying.